how people believed it was because it was the most sophisticated psychological operation which ever was carried out on the human race. Everywhere you looked, fear, separation. It was cult, the COVID cult. This cult of mask wearing, of changing how you behaved, of sanitizing, all these rituals that they made us go through. That's what it was. This has been researched, how to get people to behave in a way. You take away their autonomy, you take away their choice, you take away their individuality, take away their freedom, and lie to them and pretend that they are a danger.
Why would they want to do that?
Because this is naked evil at the back of all of this. It's naked evil. And once you understand that, the whole thing becomes comprehensible. Now, it's taken me years to arrive at that position because, as I say, in 2020, I was tossing and turning and going, what is going on? None of this makes sense. And then, as a scientist and a doctor, I was able to research, I was able to source papers. I was able then to communicate with other professionals across the world, actually. Tess Laurie set up then the World Council for Health, and there were maybe a couple of dozen doctors across the world who had formed an alliance, and we were meeting online regularly, going through what was happening in our localities, and that was really important. So that all of a sudden I wasn't a crazy woman in Derry on my own. I was a member, a very humble an insignificant member, but of a global community of skeptics, but not uninformed skeptics. These were people who were among the most credentialed and qualified people on this planet, and who, very many of them, like me, suffered. But again, me suffering is irrelevant because, as I say, I had retired. I got my pension. I'd spent my pension. It was all good. There was very little they could do to me. So, and even more, I felt that I had a responsibility to my colleagues to try and expose this and help them. So anyway, yeah, that's kind of the backstory. And then in I had talked about PCR tests. I talked about the PCR test utterly fraudulent, run at 45 cycles. It means they're looking for a sequence, a computer generated sequence, and I think they take snot from your nose and they compare it with a sequence from the snot of the patient A in China, I think, and they have these computer programs and they run it at 45 cycles, which is it's several trillion. They magnify the sample by several trillion and look for a short sequence in it. It's like looking for the word "the" in the collected works of Shakespeare. That's not science, like, it's bullshit. So, yeah.
Yeah, because there was a lot of people who would have tested positive with uh, no symptoms. I mean, what does that even mean? Like, how can you be
Means
tested positive
absolutely
for
nothing.
something?
We already showed asymptomatic transmission is not a thing. What that does is it takes people out of the workplace. It disrupts society. It pushes money. All of this is at the back of it all. Money is the root of all evil, and it was a financial scam to impoverish ordinary people, take middle class businesses away, and push all of that into the tech and online sector, and to impoverish middle and working class people, and to move. It's the biggest transfer of wealth. The whole Operation COVID was the biggest transfer of wealth from the pockets of ordinary, hardworking individuals and families to the corporate interests, to the billionaires, to the bankers, to the BlackRocks and State Streets and the rest. That's what it was.
Would a Big Pharma, they would have benefited then? Because they were the ones producing the vaccines?
Obviously, yeah. They are at the core. If you, again, whenever you, as I have now done, is research the whole history of allopathic medicine, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, all the big families are behind all of that. And it was, the Rockefellers a lot of these pharmaceuticals were made from the byproducts of their other business, which was big oil. So it's a good business model if you can work it out. They closed universities and medical schools that were teaching natural medicine and stuff like that, and insisted upon the allopathic model drugs, on tests, and then so most adults now. I mean, even as a GP, I used to be horrified. Most old people, or even people that are relatively well, are on 5, 6, 7, sometimes more medications. That's not normal. My granny lived to be 98 and she smoked a pipe and she chewed tobacco and she was great crack. And she lived with us. She never was near a doctor in her life. And she was a nothing except the odd bit of backy,
Yeah.
you know.
But
And
sometimes people, I think, are told, you have to take this now, and then they believe that,
yeah,
and then they become reliant on that,
yeah, yeah.
and then it just becomes a way of life instead
Again,
of.
to my deep shame, I knew there was something wrong, but even as a GP, it's very difficult to question. What happened in I think about mid 2000s with Tony Blair and New Labour, GPs got a new contract, and certainly my husband was a GP as well, and we were among the few who thought this is appalling, and it was all again moving towards the digital way of measuring things, and it was instead of, it used to be GPs were paid a capitation fee, so that you got whatever, a fiver or whatever per patient on your list, so that if you were not nice, if you didn't treat your patients with respect and and try and look after them, they went elsewhere, and rightly so. They voted with their feet. So it was kind of, if you like, it's a crude way of putting it, but you'd like to think you were motivated by care for humanity, and most of us were. But you had it, if you didn't behave, they went elsewhere, and it cost you financially. That all changed, and what happened was it became target driven.